Next on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
On the Friday after Thanksgiving, November 28th, we're here with Dr. Robert Heinemann, the Alfred University Professor of Political Science. Dr. Heinemann, thanks for joining us on this holiday weekend.
My pleasure, Brian. Pleased to be here. I hope you haven't overdone the turkey.
Wanted to ask you, first off, Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel is out. Your thoughts there? There was a lot of opposition to him when he came in, and I hear that he was frustrated with the Obama administration. That's what I hear on the talk shows.
No. Well, I think it's we don't know quite what happened to Hagel. I must say the pictures of him and Obama's discussing his stepping down, I thought Hagel was going to cry. The guy does not look happy at all. And I think this is, of course, pretty traumatic for him, but I think, unfortunately, it could be pretty traumatic for the nation. And we don't know yet what the battles were that led to this, but there's a lot of information that indicates that he appears to have been supporting and pushing the military and hoping to put more oomph behind what we're doing in the Middle East. On the other hand, the Obama people have pretty consistently opposed that. So you had a guy in there who really, it seems to me, couldn't provide any kind of direction. And I think one of the problems was anytime you begin to provide any kind of direction, I have to feel he's probably undermined by the people who are controlling the White House right now. And as we know, Bill Daley left the White House because he thought he had agreements with Obama, and the next morning he would find that the agreements had been basically undercut. So I got to believe that Hagel, dealing with the military, who their political finesse, I mean, they know how to handle secretaries of defense. And if you look at anything like Bob Gates's book, Duty, there's a man who had a lot of experience working with the military, the CIA, intelligence agencies, and such. And he had his hands full again and again and again. At least he could provide a certain amount of direction, but Hagel unable to do that. My fear is that you've got a clique in the White House that is marching to a totally different drummer and probably not to our benefit.
How does John Kerry fit into the Hagel situation?
I have no idea. I think Kerry... frankly, is just kind of flapping in the wind out there. And the idea that he's able to get anything done, I'd be very surprised. And I think you're going to end up with a situation where Kerry hasn't done much more than Hillary Clinton did, and she did almost nothing.
One conservative I was talking to, I guess Kevin Doran would describe him as a paleo-conservative. This paleo-conservative said to me that Obama is a second-rater and he's surrounded by third-raters. Would you subscribe to that theory? And would that
could be rating him a little high, but I would agree with that 100%. I would say to say Obama's a second-rater, I'd say he's dropping down even below that. And I think one of the problems is, again, it's a question of attitude and perspective. And unless he is able and willing to work with Congress, it's going to be a long 2 years here.
The UK Daily Mail reported that the jihadist organizations in Iraq and Syria are operating at least, they say, 46 military training camps to pick up and train recruits.
I think that's one of the problems that Hagel and the military are looking at. The military can see this, and they know that somewhere along the line, American soldiers and troops are going to have to go in there. And as we know, Obama has already poured more troops into Afghanistan without really telling anyone. I assume he's cleared that with Congress. But the point is the situation is getting worse and worse to the point where ISIS is able to claim that they are a state within Iraq and Syria, and they're issuing their own currency. I mean, the whole thing is beginning to get increasingly well established, and certainly they're not going to be at all friendly to us. So and the idea, I guess, that somehow we can just hit them with bombs and missiles, I don't think that's going to work. It's not like dealing with the jihadists in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and it's not clear that's worked all that well, but at least you can pick off leaders and such. But here in this ISIS thing, you're dealing with a much more of a mass of people.
That brings me to my next question. ISIS and ISIL, how has Obama handled?
Well, you handle them very poorly. And and I don't know whether originally he felt that these people are so outrageous that the other nations in the Middle East would step in and shut them down. But the fact is they're pounding the Iraqi army. They're pounding the Syrian army. They obviously are able to hold their own pretty well. They've run into some problems, I think, with the Kurds, who tend to be a little nastier and maybe better trained. I'm not sure. But the point is we trained the Iraqi army, and I'm sure they have some solid units, but the ability to stop these guys is not very evident. And I think Obama's approach here is not working, and Hagel in many ways is kind of a scapegoat for this. And I'm really, quite frankly, worried about whom he's going to appoint to replace Hagel. I mean, this could get pretty scary.
Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran on the Friday Newsmaker Show here on WLEA. Dr. Heineman, I imagine that one thing you're thankful for is that you're not in a certain small city in Missouri this week.
Yes, well, that is most unfortunate. And, of course, if you'd been a steady listener to the Newsmaker show, Brian, you would remember that 3 or 4 months ago, when Kevin asked what the big issues were, we mentioned a couple issues, and I mentioned Ferguson. I said, if they don't get in there and quiet this down right away, this is going to get out of hand. And that's unfortunately exactly what has happened.
Some of the conservatives are saying that they don't understand why the National Guard let things go as far as they did, as far as the riots, the burning buildings, the burning cars.
Well, I have no idea what. Again, to be there and what's happening, we're sitting a long way away, thank goodness. But I did hear the lieutenant governor saying that he who's a Republican, apparently the governor's a Democrat, and the lieutenant governor was saying that
Kinder.
And it could be, I don't know.
No, that's his name.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. In any case, the accusation was that Obama and Holder had gotten hold of the governor and urged him to hold the National Guard back. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is true, I think, that if he had sent the Guard in right from the start, a lot of this would have been slowed down. I think you have to understand here. Again, we made the point that there are professional activists who go around and kind of home in on situations like that.
But on that point, Dr. Heineman, a Fox affiliate out there in the Missouri area, I think it was St. Louis Fox affiliate, they had a video that showed a training video that the protesters were going through before the grand jury decision made. And the video showed them how to rush into traffic and to avoid cars and how to all run together in groups and that sort of thing. Your thoughts there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's the point I'm making here. And I would say this. It's getting a lot of publicity, and it's a highly unfortunate situation. But the fact of the matter is it's the last gasp of this kind of thing. The idea that this somehow is leading to a huge racial divide in this country is totally erroneous. The fact is the rest of the country has been very quiet as a result of all this. Now you get some vigils, you get some sit-ins, you get things of that sort.
The Occupy.
And that's fine. People have every right to protest and make their thoughts known. Nobody's complaining about that. But the violence and physical mayhem here, I mean, that's just over the line. But again, it's only happening almost totally confined to the Ferguson area. And my response on that is that it's kind of the waning moments of this kind of movement. And I will say this. Our president is not helping much. He's he makes comments about not to be violent and such, and then goes on into this long screed about how people have been discriminated against and suffered. And that's his community organizing Saul Alinsky background coming out. So that Saul Alinsky's whole approach was action in the streets. Now, Alinsky was not pushing violence and that sort of thing. His position was, in terms of using violence and guns, he said that doesn't make any sense when the other side has all the guns. But the point is, Obama's can't. It's kind of interesting to watch him. He can't pull himself out of that mindset of the history of discrimination and persecution and such. If you just let that go and urge these people to express their views and keep in a peaceful, constructive manner, I think he could add something here. But he just can't do that.
Interesting story in the New York Post on Wednesday morning online. They had a story that New York City police officers came to them at the Post and told the Post that they were held back by their higher-ups in New York City. They didn't say on the police force or the mayor's office or where it came from, but they did say, the New York City police officers did say that they were not allowed to do effective crowd control at the protest. Not that the protest got violent in New York City, but they were blocking traffic. Do you think this might have come from de Blasio or? No,
this is the sort of thing that would come from de Blasio, and of course one of his top advisors is Reverend Sharpton. And as you know, Sharpton, this woman who is living with this former killer, ex-con, and whose son apparently has now gotten in a lot of trouble. I don't know if she stepped down or not. She's a close advisor to his wife. So this sort of orientation, et cetera, is in the de Blasio administration, and I am afraid the people in New York City, unfortunately, are going to suffer. But I do think that there's no, as you pointed out, the protests are peaceful, etc. So you block some traffic. I don't know that that's a big thing. So I can't get too worked up about that.
On Sharpton, you mentioned him a moment ago, Dr. Heinemann. I know reporters who are so afraid of any sort of conflict, they don't even vote so they can stay objective on the people that they're covering. How can Sharpton be both an activist and a commentator on a network and talk about an issue where he goes to the town and gets involved with it? How can he cover that?
Well, what do you mean, how can he cover it? That's what he's doing. Are you suggesting that it's a conflict of interest?
Slightly.
Is that what you're suggesting, Brian?
Slightly.
I think it's outrageous, Brian, that you would take that position. Kevin will be shocked to hear that. No, I really find it. I guess he still has a show on MSNBC. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think that's really peculiar. What's MSNBC trying to do? I guess they want to show that they have a spokesperson for what? I don't know, because I can't believe that Reverend Sharpton speaks for the majority of black people in this country. I just think that day is far, far past.
Dr. Heinemann, on immigration, anything there you wanted to say?
Nothing much at this point. I think, again, a lot of reaction to the president's executive order, and we still don't know what the executive order says exactly, but I think what the president would like Congress to do is come up with some kind of legislation, and perhaps he'll compromise. I don't know. If he doesn't, I think we have a bit of an institutional issue here, but frankly, as I've said before, I don't see giving the 4.5 million or 4 million people who have been in this country permanent status is a serious, that's really not a terribly serious thing as far as I can see.
The Democrats who defend the president say that this happened before, during Reagan and other presidencies. Is that true?
Yeah, well, Reagan and I think W. Bush, provided for looser immigration standards, but I think both of them had some legislative framework to work in. The problem here is there's no legislative framework. The last real effort came back in, I guess, 1986. So that would have been under Reagan. And he acted, I assume, based on that. So now George W. Bush, I think he would have not many problems at all with what Obama's done. How far he acted, I'm just not sure on that.
Because I remember the host of this show going after George W. many times on open borders and things like that.
Yes. No, George W., pretty liberal on the issue of immigration. And, of course, a number of years ago in his administration, under NAFTA, you had the right of truckers to move across the Canadian and Mexican borders. And the Canadians, we were letting the truckers move back and forth, and they were putting a hold on the Mexican drivers. And Bush stepped in and said, no, the treaty's clear. These people have just as much right to truck across the Mexican border as the Canadians do across the Canadian border. And, I guess he's right. And again, the concern was that they'd be smuggling drugs, etc., but they're smuggling drugs anyway, so...
Did you see, on the topic of immigration, that Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the sheriff in Phoenix, Arizona, is suing the president over this executive order?
Yeah, well, who cares? I think that's irrelevant to anything, frankly.
You don't think that'll go anywhere?
I think the guy is not too far from Reverend Sharpton in terms of...
Arpaio?
In terms of media coverage and... such, although I would guess he's somewhat more responsible and he's head of a large department out there, whereas Sharpton just runs around spewing venom pretty much on his own. Dr.
Heineman, down to just a couple of minutes. Any final thoughts before we go? Is there anything on the day after Thanksgiving that you'd like to say to the audience in terms of, things you're thankful for?
Well, I think we can be thankful for a lot, even given all these things that are happening and the clouds on the horizon. But I guess if you're a Republican, you have to be pretty satisfied with the outcome of the November elections. But if you look at the economy is pumping along at a really steady, pretty healthy pace. And the whole area of energy, the United States is increasingly producing more and more and cheaper energy. So I think there's some very good things to come down the pike. We just have to hope that some of these international situations don't get totally out of hand. And so I think, I hope Americans gave a lot of thanks yesterday, and I think they'll be able to do that in the future.
Well, I can tell you that I'm thankful that little silver car outside in the parking lot with the GOP bumper stickers on the back was able to make it up the hill today.
That would be my car, Brian.
Yes. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good enough.